Mark Lee is a founding member and guitarist of the Grammy Award-winning Christian rock band Third Day. Over 2 decades, the band has released 13 albums with total sales of almost 8 million. But the road to success for Mark didn't come without heartache. At 14, he was hit by a truck and severely injured. 2 years later, Mark's dad died from brain cancer. Instead of giving up, he chose to trust God and has seen an amazing dream unfold over the past 25 years. In his memoir, Hurt Road, Mark shares true stories from the highs and lows of the lessons he's learned about faith, success, and life.
Well, Mark joins us now, and Mark, it's a pleasure to have you with us.
Thanks so much for having me. It's an honor to be here.
Well, I didn't know you had so much heartache in your life. I mean, it just, you know, reading through the biography, if you will, you know, it must have been horrible at age 14 to be, you know, hit by a truck, and then you've got to spend. How many months were you in recovery?
So I got hit by a truck when I was 14. It was my freshman year of high school, and I broke a couple of bones in my leg, and it was a really bad break, and so I was in and out of the hospital quite a bit, and in and out of school quite a bit. And so it was basically my whole freshman year of high school was this, you know, confusing time, and, you know, in a lot of ways it was the lowest moment of my life, but I feel like God used that time, the lowest moment of my life, for His good, because during that time, that was when I started playing guitar. You know, I've always been interested in music, but not to the level of wanting to do that as a job or anything like that. And so my dad actually saw my interest in music and bought me a guitar for my 15th birthday, and that was when I started playing guitar. And after a couple of years of playing
guitar, violin before that.
That's right, absolutely. That was my first instrument. My parents, you know, took me out.
Which is a tough instrument.
It really is, yeah. So I feel like if you start with something really hard, then anything else you learn after that might be a little bit easier. So yeah, I played violin from when I was really young, and then just moved over to guitar when I was.
Were you classically trained?
Yes, to an extent. Yeah, I had you know, teachers, took lessons all through all the way through high school, basically. Played in the orchestra and things like that, so yeah.
Yeah, all right. Then, after all of that, your dad gets you a guitar, and then he gets brain cancer.
Right, yeah, and so I do feel like God uses these times, and it's hard as you're going through it. It just feels like chaos, you know. And I'm 14 years old, and it's during a time where you're trying to make these decisions about what you want to do with your life, and you're making plans for the future. And for me, I feel like I had, you know, I call it in the book, I call it sucker punch number 1 and sucker punch number 2 from, you know, having the accident and then finding out that my dad had cancer and then him ultimately dying from brain cancer. But I love to see how, looking back, we can see how God had His hand in the story and how He used the time that my dad took off work to be able to be with me after my accident. It ended up being this amazing time that I got to spend with my father right before he passed away. And so we had this sweet time together. He was the one that encouraged me to do music. He bought me the guitar, got me on that path, and then, you know, we lost him a couple of years later. But I still, you know, can look back on that time that God used that time that we had together.
Did you ever ask God why?
You know, I think so. As I was first, you know, living that out, you know, it was just such a confusing, such a frustrating time. And of course, you know, I have this tendency to go, God, why me? And you know, why is this happening now? And a lot of times, you know, when we're going through it, you know, we don't have the answers. You know, we're praying to God, you know, what am I supposed to do here? And a lot of times the answer is, you know, just wait, you know, because I've got something that's going to be a little bit further down the road. And for me, you know, here I am. Third Day's been together for 25 years now, and I'm at a place where I can look back and I can see how during that time that felt so confusing when I was in high school with, you know, the accident and losing my father, that God was using that time and He was orchestrating things for His good, because, you know, I started playing guitar, and not long after that I met up with Mac Powell. We started making music together. We started a little band called Third Day, and so now we've been together for 25 years. And none of those things would have happened had I not had the accident, had I not been on this path that I'm on now.
Well, I read the story, and I tell you, you know, for a lot of people, those 2 sucker punches would have knocked them out of the game. They would have said, you know, what's the point in believing?
Right.
What was it for you that kept you to say?
You know, there's a concept I talk about in the book, and I call it landmarks. I couldn't think of a better word for it, but I feel like, you know, just as when you're reading the Old Testament about how anytime, like, God would take the Israelites and they go to, and there's something significant would happen, He'd be like, okay, set up a landmark here so that you'll always remember. And it could, could have been like a well or a crossroad or whatever. We have those same kind of things that happen in our lives. And for me, it was always music. And my parents took me to church when I was a kid. And so I had, Sunday school teachers and people in my life that were pouring into me, the faith element that's, so important. And so I can look back and see, as I've gone through these hard times of life, I had those landmarks to help me get through the difficult times. And then also, when things are going well, these landmarks are things that we can use to serve God and to encourage other
remind
people.
us
And
it's
they
not
kind
based
of
on us,
come out
it's
as
based on
talents
Him.
during those times, yeah.
Well, I'll give you the other side of the Israelite story. While they were setting up landmarks, because God commanded them to, they were complaining along the way.
Absolutely, that's right.
And you didn't. And I just find that absolutely amazing.
Well, I probably did at the time, and I think and I think it's okay that we, in the day-to-day, when we're kind of in the weeds of it, for us to question God and say, why me, why now, why is this happening? It's a very human response to it. But I think it's really for us to look at it and go, all right, what am I going to do with this now? And in my case, and it was nothing that I did, I feel like it's that God was working through me. I just felt this sense that I just needed to stay faithful, that it was all going to sort of work itself out. I talk about in the book, there's this idea of secret option C. I feel like a lot of times we're in life and maybe trying to make a decision, and it's like, okay, God, it's either got to be A or it's got to be answer B. But a lot of times, if we just wait, if, the answer to our prayers sometimes, as frustrating as it is, the answer is, okay, you need to wait a little bit. God will come through with this amazing secret option C that we never would have even thought about if we'll just give Him the chance to work.
Yeah, just there. It's not a binary question. It's sometimes just wait on the Lord.
Absolutely.
Renew your strength. Wait for Him to act. When it seems impossible, He's the only one that's going to be able to do it.
That's right. He'll make a way when there's not a way there. Yep.
Talk about your friendship with Mac. It just seems to be you guys have been on this track together now 25 years.
We have been, and in so many ways, I feel like God called us together at a certain time and in a certain place that we're like these spiritual brothers. And especially even before Third Day started, we were just friends. We played in some garage bands together, but God was dealing with us really at the same time. It was right at the end of high school when you have all these big questions. Am I going to go to college? Am I going to go join the military? Am I going to get a job? All these things, and it's sort of confusing. But we were there for each other during that time. And, we would work on music, and then we would just kind of talk a little bit about what we're going through, and we would pray together. And one of those conversations actually ended up being the beginnings of Third Day. We've been playing in these garage bands, and he wasn't comfortable with the type of lyrics that we were singing. So he's like, you know what? I think I'm going to have to quit the band. And for me, a high school senior who wanted to be a musician, it was just devastating that this dream of mine was kind of being pulled out from under me. But a couple weeks later, we were just hanging out at his house and just kind of talking about different things. And I don't know where this came from, but I just said, what if we start a Christian band? We can share our faith through our music. We can still have a band, and we can use that hopefully to encourage other people. And I was vaguely aware of Christian music. I knew of Carmen and Michael W. Smith and Amy Grant, some different artists, but I didn't grow up listening to it. So it was really kind of fun that as we were starting a Christian band ourselves, we were kind of discovering what that really even meant.
Well, you kind of reinvented it.
Oh, well, I hope so. Yeah.
I give you great credit for doing that.
Well, thank you.
God's certainly working through you, and you're definitely pioneers. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well,
all right. Well, they counted me out on time, but if you want to learn more, Mark's book, it's called Hurt Road: The Music, the Memories, and the Miles Between. If you want to know more about Third Day, it's available in stores nationwide. If you haven't picked up Third Day's latest album, it's called Revival, and you can get it wherever music is sold. And Mark, thanks again for being here.
Hey, thanks for having me. This was fun.
Good.